Welcome to The Source, where we combine the headlines with in-depth conversations with the newsmakers themselves. Today on the program.
The government is intensifying measures against the coronavirus outbreak.
The safety and security of the Filipinos here and abroad remain our primary concern.
But how ready are we in case of a massive number of coronavirus cases?
Siyempre, ma'am, yung kaba para sa mga apo ko, hindi lang para sa akin.
And later, the president accepting the apology of ABS-CBN.
I accept this apology. But fundamentally, really, ang decision nasa House ngayon.
Will this give them a better chance in renewing their franchise?
Without a franchise, the television station concerned has to cease operation.
Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles joins us live.
Thank you for joining us. Sitting in for Pinky Webb, I'm Ria Tanwat Cotrillo. Health authorities vow to intensify their efforts in detecting coronavirus cases in the country. The health department adds that there is no local transmission case in the country yet. But how ready are we in case of a massive outbreak? And later, the fate of the ABS-CBN franchise and the impact of the Visiting Forces Agreement in the United States. Let's go straight to the source of the story. Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles, thank you for joining us this morning.
Thanks for having me, Ria.
All right, let's talk about the coronavirus outbreak. In my newscast just earlier today, two of the three people who were brought to the hospital because they were having symptoms of possible novel coronavirus, two of them have been cleared. So negative na sila. We're still waiting on that last one. How ready are we to deal with a large number of cases if ever it happens?
So basically, we're talking about those that were repatriated from MV Diamond Princess. So we're still monitoring the last one. Hopefully, magne-negative din siya sa COVID-19. But are we prepared? Yes. Immediately after news of COVID-19 spread in other countries happened, our health authorities immediately told and instructed all our government hospitals to prepare for the worst. And meron po tayong mga health protocols that we've been following very strictly. And even in the private sector, we've been engaging also the private hospitals to be prepared for any eventuality. The line of thinking ng ating gobyerno ngayon is, as far as local transmission is concerned, we're looking at any eventuality, including ang notion na local transmission is a matter of when and not if.
Right.
So that's our train of thought. That is our focus right now. Obviously, we're all praying that it doesn't happen, but we're prepared for the worst.
Right, sabi nga ni Secretary Duque, it's not if, it's when. That being the case, let's say, for example, there is an outbreak and we can identify that it's in a particular city within Metro Manila. Do we have what it takes to actually lock down a single city?
Yes, actually, if it comes to that, we are prepared to do that. No, obviously, I don't wanna ayokong pangunahan kung ano yung mga protocols natin. But just the same, ang gusto ko lang sabihin is that kasama sa mga protocols yung dapat gawin ng mga local authorities. Which is why we have already asked the barangays to activate their Barangay Health Emergency Response Teams or BERTs. Para sa ganun, even down to the barangay level, handa sila to respond. No? And while that is being activated, while it is the BERTs are active, kasama na dyan sa tasking nila is the constant monitoring. In fact, down to the barangay level, ang tasking natin sa kanila is to also already identify local quarantine facilities or areas there where which we can use as quarantine facilities in case there is an eventuality na hindi natin gusto. So
Can
we're
we say
organized.
that every barangay in the Philippines has complied with that and they do have an area that they've identified as a possible quarantine?
We can't say 100%, but that is the assignment of the DILG. So the DILG right now is contacting and coordinating with all our localities from province down to cities, down to the municipalities. And all of these LGUs are supposed to impose on all of the barangays to activate their BERTs. The BERT system was something that we were able to develop because of previous coronavirus outbreaks, SARS, MERS-CoV, and all of these things. So because of the lessons that we learned there, we've been able to establish this program called the Barangay Emergency Response.
And do you think because we set it in motion early, is that the reason why we've only stayed, thankfully,
Yeah.
at 3 infected cases so far?
Yes, the 3 infected are all foreigners. Wala pang Filipino and wala pang local transmission. And I would like to believe that the BERT system was something that really helped. No? Because even when we did the tracking, even when we had to track those in close contact with the 3 positive COVID-19 cases, we had to obviously coordinate with the LGUs. And the LGUs will have to coordinate with the barangays. And by the way, this was something that the President also emphasized in the cabinet meeting. Ang sabi niya, do not forget the local governments and do not forget the barangays, which is why this has been activated.
All right, really start at that level, no? Zooming out naman, syempre, we have travel bans and potential travel bans in place. The travel ban to Korea has not yet been finalized. At saka, when I spoke to Secretary Duque earlier, medyo nainis na siya. He says, just the implementation should be immediate. They shouldn't wait for a signed document. You agree with this?
Yes, actually, when we issued the directive, when the task force issued the directive on Wednesday, we emphasized that it is supposed to be something that should be done effective immediately. So, yung travel ban na sinasabi namin, dapat ginawa ng lahat ng mga agencies. And in fact, those agencies were present during the task force meeting. So when we imposed that decision, and that when we resolved to do it effective immediately, then that should have been done. So we're monitoring the situation right now. But I think just to dispel any notions that it's not being done, it is being done. So siguro yung sinasabi na hindi perfected, I think has more to do with getting some sort of certification that travelers did not pass through those areas in South Korea.
Right.
Now, Daegu, Cheongdo, and the North
Gyeongsang, right.
province.
So that being the case, how will we be able to trace those with a travel history to those cities if they came through another city? Let's say they flew in from Seoul.
The South Korean government has assured us that they are doing the tracking themselves. Bale, kung mismo from South Korea, there has to be some sort of certification or assurance from the South Korean government that those traveling to the Philippines did not pass through. Because part of our resolution or our decision sa task force is that if they do come from those provinces or those areas, dapat they should not come to the Philippines, no? And then those that pass through there, dapat at least 14 days ang lumipas bago sila lumipad ng bansang Pilipinas.
Okay, so for now, the travel ban we're looking to implement is just from those cities, not the entire South Korea.
Not the entire, because South Korea government gave the assurance na this is something that is highly concentrated. No? So if you see the numbers of COVID-19 positive to South Korea, most of them, if not like 90% of them, are coming from those areas, no? North Gyeongsang, Daegu, and Cheongdo. So 90% ang mula dun sa area na yun. So the spike that you see are coming from those areas.
Okay, so no need to expand that travel ban.
Well,
for now.
For now, no, we're assessing, reassessing. It's a continuous process. 48 hours ang binigay namin within the next 48 hours, we will do the assessment and reassessment. So now, na malapit na yung 48 hours, wala pa naman siguro tayong babaguhin dun sa travel ban. Minute say, hindi pa namin i-expand to the entire South Korea. But we will continue to monitor this even during the weekend as it progresses. And then by Monday or Tuesday next week, if there are any announcements, we'll let the public know. But again, I'd like to emphasize, no tourists, walang turista mula sa Pilipinas. No Filipino tourists will be allowed to go to anywhere in South Korea.
Okay, that's clear. Now, other countries that have experienced a spike in confirmed COVID-19 cases, Japan and Italy, we know maraming mga Pinoy doon. Are we looking at possible travel bans to those countries too?
Ayokong pangunahan, but obviously the task force is looking at these two countries as well. No? Especially since Italy, last count namin, it spiked now to 650 in Italy. Japan has now went up to 202. But if you look at the figures, mas mabilis po yung pag-spike ng Italy. Obviously, Iran is something that we're taking a look at also. Hindi natin pwedeng baliwalain ang Iran because we still have Filipinos in Iran. About more than 1,000 Filipinos, mga kababayan natin ang naninirahan po dyan sa Iran. So tinitingnan din po namin yan.
All right. There's also a lot of Filipinos in Macau, and I think about 200 of them have expressed that they want to come home because of the COVID-19 scare. Are there any plans to repatriate them?
Yes, actually, the DFA is currently coordinating the efforts to repatriate our kababayans mula sa Macau who have signified an intention to be repatriated and come home to the Philippines. No? So that's being set in motion. We're just finalizing the details. But we have to prepare, syempre, part of repatriating them is to prepare a quarantine facility. So we're also looking at Fort Magsaysay, no, because that was the initial quarantine facility that we were looking at before going to Athletes Village. No? So if in case we need to repatriate more of our countrymen from other countries, including Macau, then Fort Magsaysay is something that we're looking at. And obviously, we're also preparing for any eventuality na baka kailangan din natin ng quarantine facility sa Visayas and Mindanao. That's also being currently prepared. So we've identified several potential sites for quarantine sa Visayas and Mindanao. Again, these are all just in preparation for the worst case scenario. No, it's better prepared and that we are prepared for any eventuality.
But as far as New Clark City is concerned, is this the last batch of quarantined individuals that will stay there? Itong galing sa Princess Diamond?
Mahirap mag-promise, Ria. I don't wanna say that it will be the last. We hope that it will be the last, diba? We hope that this virus just goes away. We hope for a lot of things, that we stay clear, we stay zero in local transmission. That's why we're doing all of the efforts. But I ask for the cooperation and support of everybody, including our LGUs. No? Huwag naman nila masamain kung kunyari magpatuloy yung paggamit natin ng quarantine facility sa New Clark. That's something that we need to do. No? And we do that based on the protocols, the health protocols that are in place. And I think by experience, because of what happens sa pagiging negative ng COVID-19, na mga repatriates natin mula sa Wuhan, that means that the facility, the quarantine facility in New Clark City is very good. No? The fact that they've come out with a clean bill of health means that all of the facility is well equipped, right, and the protocols that we established there was correct.
It served its current purpose. All right, we'll be taking a very short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles. Welcome back, Secretary. Thank you for being here. Okay, we were talking about the coronavirus outbreak. We've talked about the quarantine. Let's talk about the economic impact. You've said that this virus will have minimal impact, at least as far as remittances from Filipinos in China goes.
Yes, because of the number of OFWs in mainland China, hindi naman ganun karami. So in terms of remittances, because we've imposed a travel ban sa mainland China, then the remittances we foresee won't be affected. Mas marami po tayong mga kababayan na nasa Taiwan, Macau, and Hong Kong, right? But we already amended the initial travel ban na yung mga OFWs natin can go back, no, to Hong Kong and Macau, and then we lifted the travel ban sa Taiwan. As far as South Korea naman is concerned, marami rin po tayong kababayan na OFW sa South Korea, mostly factory workers. But remember, hindi natin pinagbawalan ng OFWs natin to go back to South Korea. That's why, based on these decisions, we don't foresee the remittances to be affected. If any, ang computation namin, it will affect the remittance growth. So we were expecting a 3% growth in remittances for 2020. And so we've downgraded that from 3% to 2.2%. But meaning to say, tataas pa rin ang remittances natin sa 2020, but just not 3%, only to 2.2%.
All right, that's for remittances from OFWs, but another industry that is being affected by COVID-19 is tourism.
Yes, that's the biggest.
Yeah, people are afraid to travel now. Personally, I was in Bohol 2 weeks ago, and when we were speaking to the vendors, talagang sinasabi nila, they feel the the lessening of their income.
Yeah.
What are we doing to help boost our tourism industry?
Well, first of all, to put it in context, our number one foreign tourists are those coming from China. Those coming from South Korea. Our number two foreign tourists are those coming from China. So that being said, because of the temporary partial travel ban, nagkakaroon ng effect yan. No? So lesser na yung mga Chinese tourists who are coming to our shores. And then now, because of this partial temporary travel ban sa South Korea, obviously, although we did not ban all South Koreans from traveling to the Philippines, there will be an effect somehow. China has about 1.8 million tourists that come to our shores every year. South Korea has 2 million. So we have to compensate it somewhere. And that's where domestic tourism comes into play. Kaya naman, mismo si Pangulong Duterte ang humihikayat na at iniengganyo ang ating mga kababayan to promote domestic tourism. Meaning to say, let's travel around the country, let's travel around the Philippines, because right now, negative pa naman. Wala pa naman local transmission ng COVID-19. No? And we're trying our best to keep it that way. The other way we're trying to compensate for whatever foregone additional revenue we're losing is by going to other countries that do not have COVID-19 and trying to entice them and promote tourism in the Philippines so that we could have them come over and visit the country.
All right, tap a different market, basically.
Yes.
Okay, now let's talk about the grant leave benefits for employees affected by COVID-19. For the part of the Civil Service Commission, they will not have any salary deductions or deductions from their leave credits. But what about the private sector? I know that you've been encouraging the private sector to do the same. What has their response been?
We can only control, based on civil service, we can only control as far as the government employees and officials are concerned. But we hope that the private sector will follow suit. Siyempre, nababahala din ang lahat ng ating mga kababayan, pero dapat bantayan din po natin yung pag-aabuso din. Which is why the Ombudsman said that he will still not tolerate absenteeism. Meaning to say, even if my resolution or my memorandum ang Civil Service Commission with regard to non-use of leave credits, if the Ombudsman or any of our officials, anti-graft and corruption officials, see that it is being abused, we will not hesitate to crack down on it. In fact, I think the Ombudsman is stricter when it comes to his own employees and officials within his jurisdiction. So, yun. Ang mensahe lang natin sa ating mga kababayan mula sa government service, nandyan yung Civil Service Commission Memorandum, but huwag yung abusuhin po. Kasi pag inabuso yan, ay may repercussions yan.
Okay, we're going to take another short break. This is The Source on CNN Philippines. Please stay tuned. You're watching The Source on CNN Philippines. Our guest today, Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles. Okay, Secretary, maiba naman ang usapan. Let's talk about the ABS-CBN franchise and things happening in the House of Representatives. House Speaker Alan Peter Cayetano says Lord Alan Velasco wants him out and he's using this franchise renewal as an issue.
Well, kami sa executive, hindi kami masyadong nakikialam no, sa what's happening sa internal goings on in the House or in the Senate. Diba? Those are internal matters that belong to them. But so I really don't know what to say about that. That's something that has to be discussed among colleagues of the House of Representatives.
Right, but one
that's
thing
a leadership issue. So
right, but they have a term sharing agreement, and that agreement was actually brokered by the president. Why not stick to that?
I think it's something that again should be discussed among them as much as possible. I think the president already said na yun yung usapan, so it's really up to them. The president just came in to lend a hand to fix a problem initially, no, in terms of the leadership issue there. But as much as possible, if any, kung meron man siyang participation dyan sa leadership issue, it's because he belongs to a political party, and these are also allies of the political party. It's basically a coalition of supporters for the administration. So when the president gave his advice during that time sa leadership issue, it was based on his role as a high-ranking member of a political party.
Okay, not interfering in Congress.
Correct.
Okay, so they still have not renewed ABS-CBN's franchise. But the president this week has said he accepted the apology that ABS-CBN executives relayed during the Senate hearing. Does this now perhaps mean that the renewal of ABS's franchise will move along more smoothly?
Well, the president also said in the same breath that when he accepted the apology, he's also said that he leaves it to Congress because that's really the turf of Congress. But I think the more recent development is that the House of Representatives, mean to say the Speaker of the House, together with the Chair of the Franchise Committee, sent a letter to the NTC asking that the NTC gives a provisional authority after May 4 because the House had not yet decided on the fate of the franchise renewal of ABS-CBN. So a letter was given and was received by the NTC from the House of Representatives Speaker and the Chairman of the Franchise.
All right, but now
Committee.
two schools of thought regarding that matter. It was former Justice Secretary Renato Puno. He said no franchise, no operations. Simple. But members of the Senate and the House of Representatives and even the Justice Secretary has said that the NTC can grant provisional authority for ABS to continue operations beyond their expiry date.
I guess the complication lies with different opinions being pronounced by different people from different branches of government. So now we have a case filed by the Solicitor General that's pending in the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court hasn't ruled yet on either jurisdiction or the issue at hand, diba? And then you have the Senate, who is part of the legislative, giving its own, and senators giving its own opinions in the House. So I guess it won't be resolved until, number one, the Senate, or the Supreme Court makes a decision, if ever it does. Then number two, if the House makes a decision, whenever it does, and as well as the Senate. But the NTC, I think, will be more inclined, I believe, will be more inclined to grant that provisional authority because it's not an outright rejection yet from the House, unless somebody questions it in the NTC, right? So, kumbaga, based on practice, the NTCs previously, in previous franchises, pag nag-expire na yung franchise tapos hindi pa na-grant, previously the NTC will just give a provisional authority.
We have literally a minute left and I need to ask you about the VFA. Senator Lacson actually said that he knows at least 10 cabinet secretaries who do not support the abrogation of the VFA. What's your comment on that?
Let me assure everybody that when the president makes a decision, the entire cabinet will support him there. So, and that includes VFA. So pag sinabi ni Pangulo, nagdesisyon na siya na ganyan, terminate ang VFA, lahat po kami, miyembro ng kabinete, ay susuportahan si Pangulong Duterte.
Okay, but supporting it is different from what their personal opinion might be.
Well, I don't know. Number one, hindi naman pinapangalanan din, di ba, or that's just
He
speculation.
didn't want to name them.
He didn't want to name them also. So mahirap naman yan. Parang naman you're putting a question mark in all of the heads of all of the cabinet members. That's why as cabinet secretary, I'm assuring the public that when the president says something, gives a directive or makes a decision, the entire cabinet is behind him.
All right, one last question about the messaging. Yesterday, President Duterte said, do we want to be an American territory or province of China? Pretty striking comments there by the president. Of course, the presidential spokesperson said no, he was just joking. But in the past, the president has said, I will not go to war with China because we will never win a war, right? But now he's saying we need to stand on our own.
Yes.
So, ano ba talaga?
Well, basically, that's the message. Consistent naman si Pangulo dyan eh. We will pursue an independent foreign policy where we are friends to everyone and enemies to none. And I think when the president gave that statement, I think all he's saying is that hindi tayo pwede mag-side sa kahit sino. That's why nag-decision tayo dun sa VFA dahil ang gusto natin, independent foreign policy, hindi tayo magpapatali kahit kanino man. So yun lang yung konteksto at yun ang ibig pong sabihin ni Pangulo, hindi tayo dun sa isa, hindi tayo dun sa isa, tayo ay kaibigan ng lahat. Walang kalaban, walang pinapanigan, independent po tayo at hindi tayo magpapatali kahit kanino man.
All right, very clear. Thank you so much for your time this morning and being with The Source Cabinet Secretary Karlo Nograles. Thank you for joining us here on The Source. I'm Ria Tanwatco Trillo. You're watching CNN Philippines.